This is the Chris Berry Show. Expert information on wealth, estate, and tax planning for the second half of life. Information that you can understand. Here's your host, Chris Berry.
Welcome to the show. This week, just like every week, we start off with a positive focus. Something positive that happened previous week, either personally or professionally. Well, my positive focus is that I just got back from a trip to California. So I went out there for a work conference right at Santa Monica, right on the beach actually, and decided to take the wife and stay an extra day or two enjoying the beaches of California. So it was pretty nice. We stayed right on the beach at an Airbnb, which was our first time trying an Airbnb, and it was a success. Other than the room that we stayed in, it basically was just like a little studio right on the beach. It was probably 10 by 10. And I actually had to climb a ladder to climb up into the bed, which was kind of a loft. So it was interesting living in a space so little. It reminded me of those IKEA rooms where they say, look, you can live in 200 square feet and have all your living appliances and everything within arm's reach. But it was nice because we didn't spend much time in the room. We were on the beach, went to a comedy show at the Comedy Store. So if you're a stand-up comedian fan, Comedy Store is really one of the most famous comedy clubs in America. So it was pretty nice to be able to spend some time there. And I'm very excited to have Mayor Sharp on the show today. He's executive director at SKLD in West Bloomfield, which is a nursing home. So he's going to talk us about some interesting innovations from a technological standpoint in nursing home care, both rehab as well as long-term care. So that's going to be our second segment. Very excited to have Mayor on the show today. And then in our third segment, we're going to get into some questions and answers, questions from our listeners, and I will be the one providing the answers. And if you do have a question you want us to take a shot at addressing on air, you can give us a call anytime at 810-355-2584, or you can email us at askchris@thechrisberryshow.com, or you can just go to the website, thechrisberryshow.com, click through, and there is a link where you can submit a question if you have one. And then if you wanted to get your questions answered live in person, we do have workshops coming up. So we do these workshops, planning for the second half of life in 3 easy steps. We do these workshops usually once or twice a week at one of our different locations. So coming up May 7th, that's going to be Tuesday in Brighton. So Brighton, Tuesday, May 7th, we're going to have a workshop at our main office in Brighton, and that's going to be at 10 a.m. And then on May 16th, which is a Thursday, we're going to be in Bloomfield Hills. So we have a couple workshops coming up in Bloomfield Hills at our Bloomfield Hills office that's right there on Square Lake. It's going to be Thursday, May 16th at 10 a.m., Wednesday, May 22nd at 2 a.m., and then a rare night workshop, Wednesday, May 29th at 6 p.m. Those are all at our Bloomfield Hills location. And again, these workshops, we call it Planning for the Second Half of Life in 3 Easy Steps, where we talk about legal, financial, and tax planning. And you do have to register for those, so feel free to give us a call, 810-355-2584, or click through on the website or shoot us an email. You do have to register. Space is limited at these. So this week, what we're going to talk about is the long-term care journey. And since we're having Mayor Sharp, who's the executive director of the West Bloomfield SKLD nursing home, I thought it'd be helpful to talk about the elder care journey, and more specifically, 3 ways that we can utilize long-term care insurance as a way to pay for long-term care. So when we're talking about the long-term care journey, what we're seeing is people are starting off relatively healthy, and then as they begin to age, they need more and more help. They might start off living at home independently, and then we might bring in one of the children as a potential caregiver, or a spouse might serve as a caregiver. But then we might need to bring in some commercial home care. And commercial home care is like private duty home care comes in a couple times per week, a couple hours per day, maybe helps you with some of the activities of daily living. So the 6 activities of daily living are the 6 things that we do first thing in the morning. We transition out of bed, we get dressed, we take a shower, maybe not necessarily in this order, we take our prescriptions, we make a meal, and we go to the bathroom. So when we're getting to the point of needing long-term care, a lot of times we get into a question of what are activities of daily living. So those are the 6 activities of daily living, the first 6 things that we do when we get up. And so we might get to the point where we need some help with those things, and that's where we look at bringing in maybe commercial home care. So a private duty home care company. Then it's going to run you anywhere from $20 to $30 an hour. Usually if you're buying a couple hours per day, a couple times per week, it might run you $1,000 to $3,000 per month. Then we might transition to needing independent or assisted living. And the lines are starting to gray here, but think of it as your American House or your Independence Village. This is going to run you anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 a month. And then we might transition to assisted living with memory care. So if we need some of that assisted living, but more of a protective environment with memory care services available, then that might run us anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 a month. And then a nursing home, and as Mary's going to go over, typically we're going to be in a nursing home for 1 or 2 reasons. One, either for long-term care or potentially for rehab. And this typical nursing home is running anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a month. And so a big question with all of this is how do we go about paying for this? Because current statistics say 1 in 2 individuals are going to need nursing home care. 3 out of 4 will need some form of long-term care. And so this is where we can look at forms of long-term care insurance as a way to address the long-term care problem. And what I'm going to do is outline some different options with regards to long-term care. So when we're talking about long-term care insurance, we're not just talking about the pure traditional long-term care insurance of old. Now we have some new forms of long-term care. And what I'm going to do is kind of go over two ways that we can address that long-term care challenge of how to pay for nursing home care, how to pay for assisted living, or how to pay for home care. And so first, one of the things we can do is look at what's called asset-based long-term care. And this differs than the pure traditional long-term care insurance. And it really came out of some of the issues surrounding pure traditional long-term care insurance. And there's 2 big issues with pure traditional long-term care insurance. The first is that you may pay on this for a number of years, and then all of a sudden they can increase the premiums on you. So I was sitting with a client a while ago. He was 83, attended one of our workshops, and so we were sitting down for the first time going over his situation. And he explained to me that in the past year, his long-term care insurance, which he'd been paying on for over 25 years at this point, had faced a premium increase of 114%. And that's just in 1 year. He told me over the previous 4 years, the premium has increased over 200%. And then the question is, well, what do? Do you pay the higher premium, which is difficult when you're on a fixed budget? Do you take a reduction in benefits? So instead of receiving $5,000 a month, now the long-term care insurance policy might pay out $3,000 a month. Or do you let the policy lapse? And so in this situation with the gentleman, he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and so I recommended that he hold on to that policy, pay the higher premium just based on his situation. So that's the first issue with that traditional pure long-term care insurance, is you could pay on it for a number of years, and then all of a sudden they could increase the premiums on you. And then the second problem with that pure traditional long-term care insurance is that you could be paying on it for a number of years, but then if you don't use that policy, if you were to pass away without utilizing that policy, so if you were to pass away peacefully in your sleep, then there might not be anything left over to the beneficiaries. So you paid on this for your whole life, and then you ended up not using it. So out of the frustrations, those two big frustrations, that's what led to the development of asset-based long-term care as a strategy to address the long-term care issue. So with asset-based long-term care, what we need to do is first you have to have some assets to qualify. But let's say you have $700,000 in your IRA. What we could do is we could chip off a portion of that, still remaining inside of your IRA, but now that money is leveraged for a long-term care benefit. So let's say that we chipped off a portion of that IRA money, still remains IRA, but now it's leveraged using asset-based long-term care, where if you had $700,000 in the IRA, you chip off $250,000. Now that could be a $430,000 long-term care bucket of money that could pay out $8,600 a month, or it could also double as a death benefit. And this is all without adding any type of annual premium at all. All we're doing is moving money from one pocket to the other pocket. And in fact, we have a book that talks about this. And so for the first 5 listeners to the Chris Berry Show today, first 5 listeners who either call in or email us, we'll send out a free copy of our book, Tax-Free Money for Long-Term Care. Again, for the first 5 callers or the first 5 people who email us, we will send out a free copy of Tax-Free Money for Long-Term Care that goes over in more detail some of these asset-based long-term care strategies. So if you do want that free book, give us a call at 810-355-2584 or email us at askchris@thechrisberryshow.com. And make sure you leave your name and your address so we know where to send this book. So if you could leave us your name, your address, your phone number, that would be great. And then what we'll do is we'll send you out a free copy of our tax-free money for long-term care that goes over some of the different asset-based long-term care strategies. So we talked about pure traditional long-term care insurance where you pay on it, and if you don't use it, you end up losing it, and they could hike up your premiums on you. And then we talked about one asset-based long-term care strategy where we could carve out a portion of, let's say, your IRA money. It remains pre-tax, so still inside of your IRA. We're just moving it from one pocket to another pocket, but now it's leveraged. So if you did need home care, assisted living, or nursing home care, you could receive that long-term care benefit that you need. And then if you pass away peacefully in your sleep without utilizing the long-term care, then whatever that long-term care bucket of money was will double as a death benefit as well. So that money that you chipped off for long-term care also doubles as a death benefit. So if you were to pass away peacefully in your sleep without needing long-term care, then there's going to be a death benefit going to your beneficiaries, which could be a spouse or children or whoever you have as your beneficiaries. So we think that's an innovative way of looking at addressing the long-term care challenge. Now, to qualify for this asset-based long-term care, there's still underwriting. So what that means is you still have to answer some health questions where if you already have a dementia diagnosis or Parkinson's or cancer, chances are you wouldn't be able to qualify for this. So this is where another form of long-term care comes into play. And with this is something that even if you do have a loved one who has been diagnosed with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or dementia or cancer, where normally they wouldn't be able to qualify for long-term care insurance, then this strategy I'm going to share with you right now may still be available. So one of the things that we can do is look at turning on an income stream. So let's say we carve out some amount of money. Let's say take $300,000. And what we're going to do is turn that into an income stream for an individual. And then if that individual were to need 2 activities of daily living, then that income stream that's coming out to that individual, that could be doubled. So it's an investment where we can add what's called a well-being or wellness rider, where if you were to need 2 activities of daily living, that income that's coming out could be doubled for a period of time to help address the need for home care or assisted living or nursing home care. So this is something that's available even if we don't or even if we can't make it through underwriting because of some type of diagnosis, it's something that's still available. Now, the one piece of this to be able to utilize this is that there is a 2-year waiting period from the time that you move into an investment like this before that income coming out of the investment can double. But once you've made it through that 2-year waiting period, then if you're to need assistance with daily living activities like transitioning out of bed or preparation of meals, or getting dressed, or taking prescriptions, or any of the 6 activities of daily living, then that money that's coming out of the investment will actually double for at least a period of time. So it's a way that we can create a lifetime of guaranteed income that can also double if we were to need long-term care. And that's just another example of looking at some of these new strategies that can address the long-term care question, where with pure traditional long-term care insurance, we don't see a lot of people moving forward with that anymore because of the increasing premiums, because there's nothing left over for a death benefit if you don't use the long-term care. And then we have asset-based long-term care strategies where if you can go through underwriting, where we can create a long-term care bucket of money that could also double as a death benefit. And then the third option is even if we do have some type of diagnosis, cancer, wouldn't be able to make it through underwriting, there's a way that we can at least guarantee income for life and then also have that income be doubled if we're to need long-term care. So we have some different strategies there with regards to planning for long-term care. And if you want some more information on that, you can either attend one of our workshops that are coming up in the Bloomfield Hills or Brighton area, or you can register for a free copy of our tax-free Money for Long-Term Care book by giving us a call at 810-355-2584. And we'll send that out to the first 5 callers or people who email. Now, you need to include your name and address and phone number for us to get you that book. And then stick with us as we bring in Mayor Sharp to talk to us about some innovations in the nursing home world.
The cost of care for an elderly loved one or a loved one with a chronic illness is shockingly expensive. If you are dealing with the unbelievable cost of care, make sure you get all the benefits you're entitled to. Here's certified elder law attorney Chris Berry from the Elder Care Firm in Brighton.
Most of my clients are really concerned about long-term care costs. They don't know where to turn, and what we can do is put together legal strategies to protect your resources and also bring in additional resources to help pay that cost of care. One of the things that they often say is that I wish I knew about this years prior. And unfortunately, the information's out there, but there's just so few certified elder law attorneys. As the only certified elder law attorney in Livingston County, it's my job to make sure that our seniors, our loved ones, our veterans have the best quality of care possible and the best quality of life possible.
Protect your hard-earned assets from probate, long-term care costs, and the IRS. The Elder Care Firm will get you the governmental benefits you deserve, including veterans benefits and Medicaid. Visit theeldercarefirm.com and schedule a free 15-minute phone consultation. That's theeldercarefirm.com.
Very excited to have Mayor Sharp from Skilled Care in West Bloomfield. Mayor, how's it going?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good. So now, your role as an executive director. Tell me kind of how you got involved in nursing homes and then the role of an executive director.
So I grew up around nursing home business since I was young. And in the community, it's a very prominent business where I come from in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And you tend to hear things around the business. And I always wanted to do something in business. I never knew what. But I was really drawn to nursing homes because it gave me an opportunity to be a force of change and to really put a positive spin on something which, growing up, I saw sometimes had negative connotations. And it was kind of sad to me seeing people who are vulnerable being put in a position where sometimes you hear things about abuse or neglect or things like that. Of course, a lot of the things that people hear about commonly throughout the media and whatnot. So I wanted to do something business-oriented touching on a lot of things.
Sure.
And I found that working in nursing homes, especially at the administrative level, was something that allowed me to use my talents the best way I could, and also to be able to help people, which is always a good thing, which is something that you understand because you do the same thing.
Right.
You could do whatever, but you choose to do something that helps people as well. So that's what really drew me to the business.
Yeah, and it's a rewarding area where you're just helping kind of families kind of navigate through the long-term care journey. It's something that I certainly appreciate you singling this area out as a relatively young to be involved in this area and see it for the opportunities of change that's available. Because, like you said, I think nursing homes, especially in the past, have had a very negative connotation. And to be a force of change in that is it's an inspiring message. And so with your role as executive director, what does that allow you to do, or how does that allow you to help kind of make these changes?
So first and foremost, I'm charged with overseeing the culture at the building. And the culture is something that's very important to our company. It's something that is talked about a lot, and getting the proper culture in the building is something that's usually very difficult to do, but it's something that is of utmost importance to get people to understand that it's the patients coming first. We have an eye towards customer service, which is one of my main focus areas. But on the flip side of the coin is making sure that the staff is feeling appreciated and that we're engaging with them, because ultimately it starts with the staff. We wouldn't have anybody in the buildings without the staff members. So my focus is on making sure the staff feels appreciated, engaging with them, making sure that they feel supported, and then getting them to buy into the idea of, customer service is at the top of the list. It's about the experience we give them. Again, it's a nursing home, so you have the nursing aspect that's very important. But my side of things is more focused on making sure the culture is on point. Something that is a saying in the company that we have is the standard is the standard regardless of the circumstances. And it's something that we all really live by every day, that regardless of what's put in front of us, we have to make sure that our standards that our company has is always put forth.
Yeah, and that seems unique to me, this idea of culture in a nursing home. And it seems relatively unique when we're talking about kind of the long-term care journey and nursing homes and home care and assisted living. This focus on the culture, where does that come from, really?
It comes from the top.
Okay.
It really does. It comes from our leaders, Yair Zuckerman, Harry Scher, Scott Sklar. These are guys that brought me up in the business in Chicago.
Okay.
And these are guys that I would follow to the end of the earth because I really believe in their message. I've sought this group out from day one, and they've never disappointed. Their vision and their commitment to making sure that we're able to we could be a successful business and still be able to give the very best to our patients and to our staff. And that was their message to me from day one of what they wanted to come out and do here. They wanted to make our CNAs the highest paid in the country. They wanted to make sure that the buildings look as nice as possible, and to incorporate different types of technologies and programming to make sure that our dozen or so buildings in the state were all going to be synonymous with the top of the line care.
Sure, yeah. And so you answered my next question of how many buildings do you have we have in the state now? You said 12?
Yeah, right around about maybe a dozen, maybe a little more.
Okay.
We're still a growing company.
Okay.
So, every few weeks it changes.
Yeah. So do any buildings around here, the Metro Detroit area? How many
yes,
buildings?
Absolutely. So we have in Monroe and Plymouth, we have in Bloomfield Hills, West Bloomfield, Livonia.
Okay.
Is that here? So several buildings out on this side.
Okay. And you're aware, and I'm aware, but a nursing home, when do people get involved in a nursing home, or when do they look to a nursing home for care?
So there's two sides. So when someone thinks about nursing home, they oftentimes think about the long-term care type of resident, someone who is unable to live at home alone anymore, or doesn't necessarily have the support around them. So they'll come to us for long-term care. Someone who's very sick, someone who's maybe transitioning, towards the end of their life. And then there's the patients who come in who are just rehab patients. You have your guy who's 50 years old who's coming in. He plays golf, every weekend, but he twisted his knee and something happened. He broke his leg, whatever the case may be, and he's here for about 2-3 weeks doing some rehab, getting really, really focused, intensive rehab with us so that he can get strong and go back home.
Sure. And if someone needs long-term care or rehab in the West Bloomfield area, what's the best way to reach you or reach the person they should be talking to?
So they can look for us online at SKLDcare.com. That's SKLDCARE.com. Or they can reach out to us directly at 248-661-1700. And they can also, if they'd like, just pop in, do a tour.
Sure.
We're over at 6950 Farmington Road in West Bloomfield.
Okay.
So they want to come over and just pop in, surprise us. We like that too, keep us on our toes.
I like it. So what do you think sets skilled apart from other skilled nursing and rehab centers?
So one of the things that I think sets it apart right at the root is that our company is a type of company that will try to take as little off the top as possible. Mm-hmm. In other words, they're always looking to put back as much into the building, into the patients, and into the staff. Mm-hmm. So right away, that to me says, speaks volumes about our ownership group, but also really is the basis for everything that we do. And because they take that approach, we're able to offer different types of technologies and different types of programming, things that you won't find anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we're able to set ourselves apart right at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Sure, our buildings, some of our buildings are getting remodeled, as we're acquiring them and renovating them. Mm-hmm. But people kind of see through that kind of thing at a certain point. So yeah, it's nice to have the nice looking buildings and the remodeled wings and all the stuff that we're doing. Mm-hmm. But really, it's about the resources that's being put back in. Mm-hmm. Not cutting corners, things like that.
Yeah, and with that, I know there's a lot of innovation, and you mentioned some new technology. Do you have any examples of kind of some of these new things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll touch on briefly one of the really cool things that we have going on. Mm-hmm. is a innovative approach to call light system. Mm-hmm. And we found that one of the biggest problems that you can have in any facility is call light response time. Mm-hmm. And generally that leads to hundreds of other problems. I can go on all day talking about all the problems from not having call light response time. Yeah. But most of all, the trust is probably the biggest thing. Besides the actual tangible things, it's the intangibles, like the trust is lost. If we can't be dependent on to answer your call lights in a timely fashion, then what can we be dependent on really?
Right.
So our ownership group identified that problem years ago, and they've been working on this program where you sort of have a type of first responder to the call lights, and we're able to sort of assign the response and the tasks to different members on the floor without them having to actually come face to face. So we're able to do this all through wearable tech, and using algorithms similar to what Uber uses. We're able to figure out how long it will take for someone to do a certain task and when they'll become available, and then to assign them, to somebody else. So it's really, really, it's something that's really, really cool, first of all. Yeah. but most of all, for the patients and for the staff, it's really, really beneficial. And it's something that we feel is totally going to change the way things are done. And the people who have seen it are recognizing that it's something that should be done everywhere, hospitals, other nursing home facilities. So we're very, very proud of that. And we're starting to roll that out little by little in our facilities here in this region.
Yeah, you're telling me about that. No, it just kind of blew my mind. That there's that level of innovation going on in a nursing home where I guess you wouldn't really necessarily expect to see that technology. And then B, like you said, it's really cool sounding in the sense that it's like a Uber inside of a nursing home to utilize that technology. And then C, or the third thing is I think you hit the nail on the head in that that's call response. That's one of the most basic things. I remember any time that I've been in a hospital or at the hospital with one of my kids, or if they're not responding right away, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the relationship. So I think it is important that if you get those basics right, then you can worry about the other things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you know how many buildings this has been rolled out at?
So just right now, just the one in Bloomfield Hills, which I was at previously before I came to West Bloomfield.
Sure.
And it's being rolled out very slowly. We want to make sure everything is right on point.
Yeah.
So there's no glitches because we want to roll it out strong.
Sure.
So we're working on that right now. Of course, they came up with it, so they're also having to write the book on the troubleshooting and fixing the bugs. So everything they're trying to figure out from square one.
Right.
But hopefully that will be out soon across several homes.
Okay. Is the Bloomfield Hills one the first one then that it's been rolled out at?
Yeah, that's the first one that's been rolled out.
Okay.
It's been rolled out in I think just a unit or two for now. And I think they're still really doing mostly testing, although it's been rolled out, but it's in a testing type way where they're still trying to figure out exactly where we're going to take it. But the technology is there and it's ready to go. And once we figure out exactly how we're going to incorporate it onto the floors, it'll be really, really exciting.
Yeah. So do you know how they identified that area where they wanted to address this technology? How did they identify the area of the call time response? Do you know?
That's a good question. I don't know. I couldn't answer specifically how they identified it.
Yeah.
But anybody who's sat in the chair in administration in nursing home knows, like that's the biggest thing. It's a nonstop barrage, true or not true.
Sure.
I know that we have ways of being able to measure these things accurately to see how long did you really wait, and we have different technologies to see that. And sometimes we'd find that someone would think that they're waiting for an hour, and they waited for about 10 minutes.
Sure.
Now, whether 10 minutes is okay or not okay is another conversation, depending on what it is. But ultimately, we realize that the perception is reality.
Sure.
And if we can't get it in the first 2 minutes, it's going to feel like 10 minutes. And if you have to use the restroom, it's going to feel like an hour. Right? And that's what we're finding. And it's always the same. And, and I've been in about 10 homes in my career.
Okay.
It's always been the same. The problems are always the same. So they identified it as the number one root cause for everything. And like we said, you're saying the first impression. If that's your first impression of us, then what are we going to do for the rest of your stay?
Right. Yeah, I think it's like that broken windows theory where there's a mayor in New York, he fixed up the windows and all of a sudden crime went down. I feel like that could be one of those kind of broken window things in terms of nursing home. If you get the call response time down, then everything else will kind of smooth out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I know we were talking about that at dinner too. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of that theory also. I apply that to a lot.
So what do you think the next kind of issue or the next issue like that will be addressed that maybe technology can play a role in nursing homes?
So I think one of the biggest things right now that we're focused on, that I think in general the healthcare marketplace is focused on, is kind of people spending too much time at hospitals and too much time in these facilities that don't necessarily need it.
Sure.
And there's a big focus right now, especially from hospitals, looking at length of stay in our types of facilities, making sure that the return rate to the hospital is low. They want to make sure that people are going home strong, but also that they stay home and they're put in place with the proper things in place at home, proper services, etc. So I think that's really the next big area that in general I think the industry will look at, because there's a lot of pressure being put on that. And the way that we're already looking at that is looking at how we can use technology in the building I'm actually at right now to help strengthen people who are there for rehab stays.
Okay.
So one of the things we'll do, I'll touch on it briefly, but we're working on a project to be able to bolster the rehab programming for patients so that they can also participate in the rehab programming in their rooms on their own time.
Oh, okay.
Either to supplement or in lieu of the regular physical therapy programming. Sometimes you find people who they have their programming for the day, but it's a couple hours during the morning, and then in the evening they're just sitting in bed. And what we're able to do is to give people through various types of exercises and equipment that we've actually put in a select few of our new updated rooms in our building, the opportunity to do these workouts with a trainer, with a video library trainer on the TV with them.
Oh, wow.
And they can pick what they do, and then we are incorporating a physical therapy team in afterwards and during with the assessments, etc. But the big thing is that we'll be able to get people stronger, faster, and then they can also go home with that confidence. Because one of the big things that you see people returning to the hospital, if they have a fall or something like that, is because they lose that confidence that they had, and they feel like, well, I don't have a physical therapist behind me holding my waist.
Yeah.
So people kind of get a little nervous at home, things like that, and then they slip and fall. So we're trying to give people that confidence to say, you know what, you can work out if you want to do a little bit extra in the evening, you do it with your family when they come to visit.
Get some extra credit.
Exactly. Do that, get stronger, and then you can stay out. And that really helps everybody. And that's really, I think, the next big problem that a lot of people are identifying.
Yeah. Well, Mayor, thank you so much. This has been really enlightening, learning about all the technologies going on in the nursing home world. One last time, if they need a rehab, what's the best number to reach Skilled West Bloomfield?
248-661-1700, or you can find us online at skldcare.com.
All right, Mayor, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
If you or a loved one is facing long-term care costs, make sure you talk with certified elder law attorney Chris Berry from the Elder Care Firm, like Sherry Skelton and her family did from Fenton.
My mother has Alzheimer's. My mom just had a regular will. She didn't have anything set up in a trust. And Chris set up a brand new will, and he got everything rolling. Chris has been extremely helpful. My mom would never have gotten my dad's VA benefits if it wasn't for them. Lori, who actually did a lot of the paperwork for the VA, she was like my new best friend. I talked to her probably 2-3 times a week, and we would be on hold together while we were waiting for the VA to pick up. We were approved, and we never would have been able to do that if it wasn't for them. I can't even begin to tell you what he did for my family.
Hello, I'm attorney Chris Berry. The Elder Care Firm is here to help you and your family find solutions. Call us today.
Protect your assets from probate, long-term care costs, the IRS, and get the governmental benefits you deserve. Visit theeldercarefirm.com today or call 810-214-3800.
Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that conversation with Mayor Sharp discussing kind of innovations in nursing homes. So in our third segment today, what we're going to do is get into some of the questions and answers that our listeners have. So if you do have any questions, feel free to give us a call or email us or go to our website at any time, and we'll take some of those questions and read them on air and then actually provide answers. Now keep in mind, it's consult with your own professional. A lot of times when someone asks me a question and I always have to answer with it depends, but I do want to provide some guidance with these questions and answers. And again, if you do want a free copy of our tax-free money for long-term care book, give us a call at 810-355-2584 or shoot us an email at askchris@thechrisberryshow.com and provide a name, address, and phone number, and we'll get that book out to you, available to the first 5 callers. So with that, we'll get into the questions and answers. And so the first question is from Simon. How do I put my paid-off property into a trust? So it sounds like Simon has paid off his mortgage or on his real estate. And the question is, how do you put that real estate into a trust? And the answer is you use what's called a deed. And so there's different types of deeds. Technically, there's really only 2 types of deeds. There's either a quick claim deed or a warranty deed. So a quick claim deed or a warranty deed. And basically they operate the same. The only thing that's different with the warranty deed is that you're warranting that you actually have ownership and all the back taxes have been paid. Otherwise, a quick claim deed and a warranty deed are basically the same thing. Now, there's different types of deeds that we can utilize, but whatever type of deed we use, it's either going to be a quick claim deed or a warranty deed. Now, the question is, how do we put this asset, put this real estate into a trust? Well, we use a deed. But the type of deed is going to depend on what type of trust we have. So if Simon has a basic revocable living trust that avoids probate and controls the distribution upon death, then a lot of times what we're going to utilize is what's called a Ladybird deed, named after Lady Bird Johnson. And what this type of deed does is it operates like a beneficiary designation for your home. So the real estate would be in Simon's name, Simon in your name while you're alive, and then upon death, then it goes into the trust. So it's like a beneficiary designation for your home or second piece of real estate. So we do a lot of Ladybird deeds, and that's a great way to avoid probate and control that distribution, making sure it gets into the trust so it follows the distribution terms of the trust. Now, Simon, if you happen to have an asset protection trust like a castle trust, instead of doing a Ladybird deed where it's in your name while you're alive and then upon death goes into the trust, instead we would deed it directly to the trust. Because a lot of our clients are interested in asset protection and protection from long-term care costs, that type of thing. And so what we do is we set up an asset protection trust like a castle trust. And if we set up that castle trust, then we're going to deed the property directly to the trust, where now the trust would be the owner. Now, you would be the trustee of the trust, so if you wanted to sell your house, the proceeds of the sale would go back to the trust. But everything inside that trust would be protected from lawsuits, as well as that devastating long-term care or nursing home care spend down. So the assets in the trust could be protected. And if you had your home in the trust, you'd have the flexibility of not only avoiding probate with the home because it's in the trust, but now you have the flexibility, if you wanted to, you could sell your house and the proceeds of the sale would remain protected inside of the trust. So there's different ways to do it. And also you said now that it's paid off, well, keep in mind there is a law called or act called the St. Germain Act that says that if even if the home is mortgaged, you can put it inside of a trust. And there's some specific rules around that. But even if you do have a mortgage, it still can go in a trust. So it doesn't have to be just for paid off real estate. So this brings us to our next question. Next question, my mother has dementia. Will her estate planning attorney answer my questions about successor trustee, financial power of attorney? So the issue here is with your mom having dementia, the attorney can only share information if they have been given access to it, or if mom has said that that's someone that we can share the information with, because of what's called attorney-client privilege. So if mom hasn't kind of waived that privilege to allow that information to be shared with you, then that estate planning attorney can't really share that information because of attorney-client privilege. So that takes me to this next question, and this is from Sandy. How do I get a POA for my mother? My mother has passed on January 27th. My sister was POA and passed on April 6th. Oh my, sorry to hear that. I'm the sole survivor. How do I get a power of attorney for mom? And this is from Sandy. Well, Sandy, I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to be able to kind of take care of mom's affairs after she passed away. But instead of relying on the power of attorney as the document that gives you authority, we need to rely on something else. Because that financial power of attorney, when mom passed away, that financial power of attorney ceased to be effective. And this is a common misconception. A lot of people think that powers of attorney last forever, but a financial and medical power of attorney, when the person who creates that has passed away, those cease to be effective, and we need to look at one of the other tools or one of the other ways to be able to make decisions for someone. And so with your mom passing, then we get into an estate administration scenario where we have to look at what are the ways that we can either get authority or transfer assets out of a deceased individual's name. And when someone passes away, there's 4 ways that assets can transfer out of someone's name. The first way would be through joint ownership. So if your mom was joint with you or anyone else, then when mom passes, the asset goes to whoever she was joint with. Second would be through beneficiary designations. So if your mom had an IRA or a 401k or a life insurance policy, and there was a named beneficiary, then all you'd have to do is send in a death certificate, and the financial institution will cut a check or transfer the money to the named beneficiary. Third would be through a trust. So ideally, your mom has a trust, and if that's the case, then you would have to be appointed as a successor trustee. So you'd have to sign on to accept your role as a successor trustee under the trust. But if an asset doesn't pass through joint ownership, beneficiary designation trust, then it ends up going into probate. And that's a court process that typically we want to avoid. Because it's costly, it's time-consuming, and it's public. Anyone can see what's going through the probate process. So if little Johnny was supposed to get $300,000, everyone knows that little Johnny can get that money. It's costly. 3 to 5% of any assets typically get eaten up in probate costs, whether it's filing fees, inventory fees, publication fees. And it's time consuming. By statute in Michigan, it's to take at least 5 months for assets to go through the probate process. So ideally, in your situation, Sandy, we can avoid probate, and hopefully mom had a trust, but you're not going to be looking at the power of attorney as the document that's going to give you authority to act. That's going to come under either the trust or the will. So the trust would appoint you as a successor trustee, or the will would appoint you as a personal representative. Now, if there isn't a trust and there isn't a will, then your mom passed away what's called intestate. And that means that you have to follow the default rules of Michigan. And now you, as well as any of your siblings, would then petition the court to become appointed a personal representative in probate. But now you're looking at a messier probate process. So hopefully the assets can get transferred out of your name through either joint ownership, beneficiary designation, or ideally she has a trust. But if not, it looks like it might be a trip to probate court. And that's what most people want to try to avoid. All right, that brings us to our next question. I wish to consolidate 5 mutual funds that currently in my trust into IRAs to reduce work for my trustees upon death. How should I do this? And this question is from Rick. Well, Rick, we have to clarify something. So we need to clarify whether these are indeed IRAs, meaning it's pre-tax dollars. Okay, so while you're working, you probably had a 401k or 403b, and then when you rolled it over, you probably rolled it into an IRA. Now, if you have IRAs, one thing with the IRAs is that the trust cannot be the owner while you're alive. So I'm guessing the trust is listed as a beneficiary. So the comment here is that I wish to consolidate 5 mutual funds that are currently in my trust into an IRA to reduce the work for my trustees upon death. So I'm guessing that we have these 5 different mutual funds. I'm guessing they're all IRAs. And I'm guessing that they name the trust as the beneficiary. So if that's the case, then if they're all IRAs, you can all combine them into one IRA if you wanted to, and then just name the trust as the beneficiary. And that should make things pretty straightforward for your successor trustees upon death because of how assets transfer when you pass away, like we talked about, joint ownership, beneficiary designation, trust, or probate. So if they are your IRAs, then you have to be the owner of them, so we can't have the trust as the owner. But what we can do is name the trust as a beneficiary. So whether you want to keep the 5 different accounts, you could roll it all into one account as long as they all are IRAs. If you have some post-tax and some pre-tax, then you have to have separate accounts or you have to cash out the IRA. But I would name the trust as a beneficiary of the different accounts. And that'll make things pretty straightforward for your beneficiary because the assets will avoid probate and they will go to whoever you've named inside of the trust. Now, one thing with the IRAs, if we are naming a trust as a beneficiary, you have to make sure that the trust is set up properly so that when you do pass away and your beneficiaries are inheriting these IRAs, that we can do so in the most tax advantage manner possible. Because if the trust is not set up correctly, then when you pass away with this pre-tax dollars, all the income tax would have to be paid out within 5 years. Versus if we were to set the trust up properly to allow what's called a stretch IRA provision inside of the trust, then the taxes could be stretched out where instead of having to pay all the tax within 5 years, they could actually stretch it out over their lifetime. That's where the word stretch IRA comes from, is being able to stretch out these tax payments. So if you are naming the trust as a beneficiary of the IRA, you need to make sure that the trust is set up correctly to allow the stretch out, to allow the stretching out of those required minimum distributions that occur when an IRA becomes an inherited IRA. So when you turn 70 and a half, you have to start taking out your required minimum distributions. But when it becomes an inherited IRA, no matter what your age is, even if you're age 40 or 30, you have to pay RMDs, required minimum distributions, on those pre-tax accounts, even if you're not 70 and a half, because now it's become an inherited IRA. So with this trust that you're naming as a beneficiary of the IRAs, you need to make sure it's set up properly. And when I say you, I recommend you sit down with a good attorney and advisor to make sure that the trust does allow for the stretch of that IRA so that all the pre-tax money doesn't have to be paid within 5 years. Because that could be the concern, is because sometimes you have a trust not qualify as what's called a designated beneficiary. But if the trust is set up properly, then the trust can qualify as a designated beneficiary and you can maintain the stretch out of those IRAs. So I know that wasn't really where you were going with that question, Rick, but I wanted to make sure that we discussed how important it is to name your trust as an IRA and make sure that you're setting up the right type of trust. And it's even more important to name IRAs as the beneficiaries of name the trust as the beneficiary of the IRAs because we had a Supreme Court case in 2014 called Clark versus Ramaker that said those inherited IRAs, if you name an individual, doesn't have the same level of asset protection as when you name a trust, assuming the trust is set up properly. So we had a Supreme Court case that put even more weight, more credence on naming a trust as a beneficiary of your IRAs to make sure that the beneficiaries, the principal, whatever they decide to keep inside of the trust, inside of that IRA would be protected from divorces, lawsuits, creditors, etc. So we are naming IRAs, trusts as the beneficiaries of the IRAs, and it's just important to make sure that we set up that trust properly. Next question, this is from Catherine. I'm a single mom with 2 minors. Should I name my youngest one as the only beneficiary of my retirement account? Do RMDs need to be drawn until the accounts are empty? Catherine, it sounds like you have 2 young children. I would look at naming a trust as a beneficiary of those retirement accounts, the IRAs or 401ks, because I have 2 young children myself, 8 and 6. And if they were to inherit any money outright, I think they'd spend all the money on Legos, which I think would be cool, but probably not the best use of that money. So it sounds like I would recommend at least having a very basic revocable living trust so you can appoint someone else as a trustee to manage the money for the benefit of your minor children. So I would recommend setting up a trust and then also naming the trust as the beneficiaries of those retirement accounts instead of naming either the youngest or either of your minor children. I think there's a better way to go. So, Catherine, hopefully that was helpful, and I want to thank everyone this week for listening, and especially thank you to Mayor Sharp from SKLD in West Bloomfield, really providing some education on just some of the technology going on in nursing homes. And with that, I want to thank everyone. Make it a great week. I'll talk to you next week at same time, same place. Take care.
Learn more about Chris Berry and how he can help your family by visiting online at thechrisberryshow.com. That's thechrisberryshow.com. You can also call Chris Berry at 810-355-2584. That's 810-355-2584. This program content reflects the opinions of Chris Berry and his guests, not the elder care firm, AE Wealth Management, or the CJ Berry Group, and is subject to change at any time without notice. Content provided herein is for informational purposes only and should not be used or construed as investment or legal advice or a recommendation regarding the purchase or sale of any security or to follow any legal or tax strategy. There is no guarantee that the strategist's statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. All investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There's no guarantee that any investment plan or strategy will be successful. We recommend that you consult with a professional dedicated to your needs. This program is furnished by the Elder Care Firm.
If you or a loved one is facing long-term care costs, make sure you talk with certified elder law attorney Chris Berry from the Elder Care Firm. Here's Elder Care Firm client Bill Daprich.
My wife has dementia. We decided that we had to put her in the nursing home. Well, naturally, we had to get lawyers, and we went through 3 before we met Mr. Berry, and he's done everything for us. I guess one of those things that kind of sticks in your mind, he says, I'm your new best friend, which is true. He's really helped a lot. One of my biggest concerns was not to have to sell the house up north, because actually I wouldn't get a penny out of it. It would all went to the state or the nursing home. And Chris says, don't worry about it. We'll take care of that. Would I recommend him? Definitely, especially the people there in Brighton. They've been great.
Hello, I'm attorney Chris Berry. The Elder Care Firm is here to help you and your family find solutions. Call us today.
Protect your assets from probate, long-term care costs, the IRS, and get the governmental benefits you deserve. Visit theeldercarefirm.com today or call 810-214-3800.